there's a lot of stuff going on in the Islamic world which needs to be criticised, and not just criticised, but vigorously opposed, because it's a threat to life and limb, it's a threat to the core values of the West. It should not be tolerated. Now, one can't say that because one is immediately accused of Islamophobia. If you talk about the rape and pimping gangs being mainly perpetrated by Pakistani heritage Muslim men, you're immediately accused of Islamophobia. It's been had an absolutely chilling effect, and now the current Labour government is flirting quite badly with the idea of criminalising it further. So the problem with Islamophobia is that it criminalises legitimate and necessary discussion about Islam. And one of the things it criminalises or seeks to suppress is the criticism or identification or acknowledgement of Muslim anti-Semitism. Okay, as we have been discussing, anti-Semitism is across cultures and creeds, and it's rampant throughout the West among a lot of white-skinned people, a lot of people of different creeds and cultures. But nevertheless, there is a disproportionate amount of anti-Semitism in the Muslim world. The Muslim world is one of the most anti-Semitic cultures on earth, and is in large measure responsible for much of the uprising against Israel and the Jewish people that we've seen since October 7. It's been led by Islamists, some of whom are attached to the Hamas, some of whom are run by Iran, but basically Muslims who are enraged about Jews and enraged about the West. You can't address the problem of anti-Semitism in Britain without saying, well, we have to have against Islamophobia as well. So you can't, Muslims are not sending their children to schools behind barbed wire and fortified doors. Muslims don't post guards on every communal activity that they have. Okay, there are people who are prejudiced against Muslims, of course. There are people who are prejudiced against Sikhs and Hindus and Chinese people and people with red hair. I mean, prejudice against anybody is bad. We can surely all agree on that. But in terms of who is actually suffering from not just prejudice, but attacks, what's going on against Jewish people is off the scale. Now, we read, Islamophobia and anti-Muslim attacks have gone up. Well, I'm sure they have, and that's not good, obviously not good. But it's nothing compared with the risk and the threat to the Jewish community, which has been severe for decades. I mean, Jewish children in Britain have been educated and communal activities have been going on behind guarded fortresses for many, many years. And I'm afraid Muslims are disproportionately involved in those attacks. They're certainly not, it's not the majority as far as I can see. The majority of attacks are coming from white-skinned Caucasian people. But in terms of a community participation, there's a disproportionate number of Muslims involved. And apart from a few very, very brave Muslim souls in Britain and across the world, and they are so small in number, there has been no kind of Muslim community thing saying, this is an appalling thing in our society, we're doing this wrong, we're doing that wrong, we have to take responsibility for this. In all the decades since we first became aware of Islamic extremism, Islamic terrorism, and certainly since the great uprising against Jews, there's been nothing communal at all. There's been no acceptance or acknowledgement there is any problem whatsoever in that community. Now, if this is the Jewish community, if a few people in the Jewish community were involved in nasty stuff against another group, the Jewish community would pulverize itself, and much of the West would do the same. It would, it would berate itself. It would tear its clothing. It would say, "What are we doing wrong?" It would interrogate itself. There would be anguish unlimited. From the Muslim community, there's nothing at all.